Not every explosion starts with fire. Some begin with silence. A gaze frozen in time, a presence that unravels logic, as if the world around you dissolves for a few seconds. There are moments when the heart recognizes what the mind has yet to understand. It's not about chemistry or compatibility. It's as if something ancient is being remembered, like an unfinished story poised to resume. You feel, you don't think. And everything that came before that person suddenly loses its weight. Some encounters don't ask for permission, don't follow any script, and don't need explanations. They just happen. And when they do, they're more than love. They're a calling, a sign, a cosmic realignment. It's destiny in its rawest, clearest, most inevitable form. If you've ever felt this without knowing why, comment, "Destiny finds me when I'm ready." In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the kind of love that transcends the rational plane and steps into the realm of destiny is more than a simple meeting of two people. It's the reflection of an internal process of individuation. Jung believed that every human being carries archetypal images within, among them the anima and the animus, symbolic representations of the feminine in the man and the masculine in the woman. When we fall intensely and inexplicably in love, we are often projecting these images onto the other, recognizing outside us something that actually pulses within. But there are moments when projection gives way to integration, and that is where destiny comes in. The meeting that feels pre-written is not some mystical coincidence, but a profound synchronization between two psychic journeys converging at the exact point of inner maturation. Jung called this phenomenon synchronicity, external events that mirror internal processes with symbolic precision. Love that is destiny doesn't arrive to complete us. It mirrors our own shadow so powerfully that it forces us to evolve. This connection confronts us, heals us, and transforms us, activating the drive toward wholeness, where the fragmented I moves closer to the self, the center of the psyche. In this context, true destiny isn't finding someone, it's finding yourself through another. Thus, love that arrives with the force of destiny isn't magical because it's rare, but because it's inevitable. It's an unconscious summons for us to stop running from who we are. Some encounters don't happen. They recognize each other. Long before words, gestures, or even physical presence, there is a psychic movement that precedes any logic. The unconscious senses it first. Jung teaches us that the collective unconscious contains universal archetypal images that span cultures and eras. Among these images are those symbolizing the significant other, the anima and the animus. When someone awakens these figures in us, we feel as though we've known that person all along, not because they are familiar to our personal history, but because they are familiar to our deep psyche. This soul recognition is a silent, yet overwhelming phenomenon. It's not about sympathy or affinity, but resonance. It's as though that person activates something dormant within us, something essential that needed to be remembered. That doesn't mean the person is responsible for the memory, but that they carry symbolic keys that unlock our inner doors. Jung believed we are drawn to what we need to integrate, so when the unconscious finds in another a mirror of our own hidden aspects, a kind of psychic magnetism occurs. This encounter can feel like destiny because its intensity defies rational explanation. Suddenly, you feel you have known this other for centuries, even if you've just met. It's not necessarily past life memory, it's soul memory, the unconscious dwelling in symbolic time. What's most curious is that this kind of recognition doesn't depend on time or familiarity. It can happen in an instant, with a look, with a phrase. It's as if, for a moment, two consciousnesses align on such a precise frequency that the world around fades away. Time seems suspended, and all that remains is the certainty that something profound needs to be lived. This phenomenon resembles what Jung called synchronicity, external events mirroring significant internal processes. The encounter with someone who sparks this recognition isn't planned, but it arrives with a force that reorganizes life. It's not about being ready, but about being available for the impact such a connection brings. Because soul recognition doesn't ask permission, it invades, reveals, and transforms. And although this moment may seem romantic at first glance, it is, above all, psychic. True attraction takes place behind the scenes of consciousness, where images, wounds, and desires intertwine in search of healing and wholeness. The soul doesn't seek the other for completion, but for integration. That is why meeting someone we recognize before we understand can be the start of a profound, sometimes painful, but inevitably transformative journey. Recognizing someone so deeply is also a calling. Life is asking something within us to awaken. And when we accept that call, we begin to see beyond appearances. The other ceases to be merely a person and becomes a mirror, not of what we want to see, but of what we need to face. The boundary between projection and destiny is subtle, almost imperceptible. At first, everything seems perfect. The other appears to fit exactly into our dreams, as if sculpted by our most secret desires. But this perfection, from Jung's perspective, is often the result of projection. In other words, we're not seeing the other as they truly are. We're seeing the reflection of something within us, projected onto them like an enchanted mirror. Jung warns that projection is inevitable in the early stages of love. We project our animus or our anima, the inner images of the masculine and the feminine, onto our partner, attributing to them idealized qualities that actually belong to our own inner world. This projection serves a function. It draws us to what we need to integrate, revealing parts of ourselves still unconscious. The problem arises when we cling to the projected image, ignoring the reality of the person standing before us. But what happens when, even after the illusions fall away, the bond remains? When even seeing the other with all their imperfections, we still feel that something greater connects those two souls. At that point, projection begins to give way to destiny. When we can pierce the haze of enchantment and see the other clearly and still choose to stay, we enter a deeper level of relationship. It is love that survives truth, that does not dissolve with the revelation of reality, and that is rare. Destiny in this context is not an external force deciding for us, but an internal impulse for growth. True destiny isn't finding the ideal partner, but finding someone who compels us to confront who we really are. That is why loves that seem predestined often come with intense challenges. They shake our foundations, destabilize our psychic routine, and force us to grow. This type of love doesn't nourish fantasy. It unmasks. It shows us that the other isn't responsible for our happiness, but can be the catalyst for our transformation. And that is the turning point. When we stop seeking in the other what we lack, and instead perceive that the relationship is there to reveal us. Destiny isn't in the other. It's in what the other activates within us. The most powerful aspect of this process is that, by acknowledging our projections, we don't destroy love. We purify it. We strip away layers of illusion and leave the bond naked, vulnerable, and authentic. That is when it ceases to be a fantasy and becomes sacred. What was idealization turns into acceptance. What was neediness becomes strength, and what was escape becomes encounter. At this stage, the relationship transforms into a true field of individuation. Every challenge, every disagreement, every crisis takes on symbolic meaning. It isn't there to drive us apart, but to show us where we remain stuck in unconscious patterns. Love that endures beyond the fall of projection is love that has matured. And when that happens, it is more than love. It is destiny manifesting as mirror, challenge, and guide. Thus, the question isn't whether love is projection or destiny. The question is, are we willing to cross the veil of illusion to discover what truly lies behind this encounter? Because if we are, we may find that destiny has never been out there. It has always been calling us inward. There is a dangerous romanticization of what we call destined love. We often expect that such a meeting will bring only fulfillment, peace, and wholeness. Yet in the light of Jungian psychology, the deeper the bond, the greater its capacity to confront us with what we have denied in ourselves. And that is not always comfortable. Jung called this hidden, repressed aspect of the psyche the shadow, all that we do not accept or acknowledge in ourselves, which we project onto the other or silence within. In love, carrying the force of destiny, the shadow does not merely reveal itself, it imposes itself. The other unwittingly becomes a mirror of our contradictions, fears, and most primitive insecurities. Not because they provoke them, but because they activate them. The intensity of the bond creates a psychic field where everything hidden surfaces. The passion that draws us close is the same that threatens to undo us, and this is not coincidence, it is process. When we look at relationships that profoundly transform, we almost always find pain alongside enchantment. This happens because the unconscious uses the bond as a portal to healing. What destined love does is open the wound so it can finally be seen. This love doesn't anesthetize, it reveals, and in revealing, it offers a unique opportunity, to integrate parts of ourselves that were dissociated, forgotten, or rejected. At this point, idealization dissolves, masks fall away, and with them, the wounded child, the insecure adult, the fragmented self we all carry inside, emerge. The presence of the other becomes a catalyst for self-awareness, and often this comes in the form of crisis. Conflicts, misunderstandings, separations, all of these can be read as symbolic symptoms of a deeper process, the need to meet our shadow. Such loves demand courage, not the courage to stay at any cost, but the courage to look at ourselves in the mirror that the other represents. Because the true healing destiny proposes is not in saving the relationship, but in allowing it to transform us. And transformation, as Jung well knew, is always a process of death and rebirth. What dies is the superficial identity. What is reborn is a more whole version of ourselves. The pain in this kind of love is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of depth. We are only wounded at the soul by what is alive. And if it hurts, it's because it is alive. The shadow, when confronted with love, does not destroy. It purifies. It invites truth, surrender, and inner listening. When we accept this invitation, love becomes alchemical. It takes us back to the center, to the essence. Thus, destined love is not the kind that promises eternity, but the kind that returns us to ourselves. It is not perfect. It is imperfect, and precisely for that reason, it is real. It does not complete us. It challenges us to complete ourselves. And sometimes it forces us to let go of the other, so we can hold on to ourselves. When embraced, the shadow becomes a bridge. What once separated us now unites us on another level, the level of authenticity. And that is why many destined encounters do not last through time, but echo in the soul. Because they did not come to stay, they came to awaken. They came to break patterns, reveal truths, and heal ancestral wounds. To love someone who touches our shadow is one of the most courageous acts we can live. And accepting that destiny does not guarantee comfort, but growth is the first step in crossing this portal with awareness and truth. The love that truly transforms is the one that, above all else, lays us bare inside. Meeting someone we feel as destiny is not a point of arrival. It is, in fact, the beginning of an inner journey. Jung called this path the process of individuation, the quest to become who we truly are, integrating all parts of the psyche, conscious, unconscious, light, and shadow. On this path, the other is not merely a companion. They are a mirror, a guide, a challenge, and a symbol. When we encounter a love that both destabilizes and aligns us, we face an essential reflection, the reflection of what we need to recognize within ourselves. The presence of the other allows us to access inner dimensions that alone we might not dare to touch. They activate wounds, yes, but also dormant talents. They point to our inconsistencies, but also to our power. The sense of destiny arises because that person awakens an archetypal memory of wholeness. They resonate with parts of us that were forgotten or fragmented. It's not that the other completes these parts, they merely illuminate their absence. And in doing so, they invite us to complete ourselves on our own. This is the essence of conscious love, not depending on the other to be whole, but using the relationship as a mirror, reflecting the path back to the center. Jung emphasizes that individuation is not isolation, but integration. And often it is in the relational field that this integration reveals itself most forcefully. The other is not there just to be loved or desired. They are there to provoke self-knowledge, to show us where we remain trapped in unconscious repetitions, where we betray ourselves, where we deny who we are. And when we embrace this symbolic function of the relationship, we stop seeing love as an end and begin seeing it as a means of healing, a means of evolution, a means of reunion with the self. But this process is only possible when we stop blaming the other for our wounds, when we understand that the other did not come to save us, but to provoke us. And that provocation is often the greatest gift someone can give, because it forces us to grow, to step out of our comfort zone, to break patterns that no longer serve us. Inner unity, so sought after in spiritual and therapeutic journeys, does not happen only in solitude. It happens in friction, in intimacy, in true exchange, because it is there, in raw, unfiltered coexistence, that our defense mechanisms fall away and our truth emerges. Destined love has this power. It does not ask us to be perfect, but to be authentic. It does not require the other to understand us all the time, but it requires us to be honest about what we feel, even if it hurts. And the more we become aware of the other's symbolic role in our lives, the more we can love without attachment, without projection, without the need for control. We love for who the other is, not for who we want them to be. And it is in this kind of love that destiny reveals itself most clearly, not as a fixed script, but as a path built with each conscious choice, each renunciation of the ego, each step toward integration. Destiny, then, ceases to be something that happens to us and becomes something we manifest. By integrating our opposites, by embracing our shadow, by honoring our feelings without losing ourselves in them, we create the internal space to live more authentic relationships. And that's when the magic happens, when love doesn't take us away from ourselves, but returns us to who we truly are. To love someone who mirrors our individuation process is to walk toward unity. It is to realize that the quest was never for the other, it was for ourselves. And that true destiny is this, to rediscover ourselves in the reflection of love. Some loves don't pass away. They cross through us. They leave marks that time cannot erase, because they were not mere encounters, they were awakenings. And when we recognize that these bonds touched something essential within us, we understand that we were not just living a story with someone. We were being called back inward, to the core of our being. Love that is more than love, love that is destiny, does not come to fill us. It comes to reveal us. Throughout this journey, we've seen that the other can be a portal, a mirror, and fire. That pain can be a sign of depth, and that true destiny is not fulfilled outside but within, when we have the courage to see, to feel, and to integrate. If this resonated with you in any way, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share it with anyone who needs to hear this. And furthermore, watch the video on the screen now. It complements this reflection and can further expand your process of inner transformation. You are not here by accident. What calls you within is real, and the love that transforms you is precisely what rebuilds you.